Imagine this. You're the son of one of the richest men in the city. You live in a mansion so big, it takes a golf cart to get from one side to the other. You wear clothes worth more than most people's cars. Everyone expects you to shine. But every time a test lands on your desk, you fail. Not just once. Not just twice. Every single time. That's Ethan's life. The billionaire's son who had everything except success. And just when his world was about to collapse, someone stepped in. Not a teacher. Not a tutor. Not even his powerful father. No, it was the man nobody noticed. The janitor. But how could a janitor hold the secret to turning Ethan's entire future around? That's what you're about to discover. The morning sun slid across the glass walls of the Rutherford estate. Chandeliers still glimmered from the night before. Polished floors reflected like mirrors, and the air smelled of imported roses. But inside Ethan's room, chaos reigned. Books lay unopened on his mahogany desk. Crumpled test papers were stuffed into the trash. Ethan sat slouched on his bed, headphones on, staring at nothing. Knock. Knock. The heavy oak door creaked open, and in walked Richard Rutherford. Ethan's father, a man built like authority itself. Tall, broad-shouldered, always in a tailored suit even before breakfast. His face, stern and sharp, looked like it hadn't smiled in years. Ethan. His voice cut through the music. Do you know what today is? Ethan slid one earphone off. Monday. Richard's jaw tightened. It's the day I meet with your principal. Again. To discuss your performance. He nearly spat the last word. Ethan looked down. Dad, I tried. Tried? Richard's hand slammed the desk, scattering books. Ethan, you're a Rutherford. You're supposed to lead. Do you know how humiliating it is to hear that my son, my only heir, has failed yet another exam? Ethan wanted to scream. But instead, he muttered, maybe I'm not cut out for your world. Richard's eyes turned cold. Then you'd better figure it out fast. Because in my world, failure isn't an option. And with that, he stormed out, leaving Ethan in silence. Ethan dragged himself into Crestwood Academy, an elite private school where kids drove Lamborghinis and wore Rolexes to class. Everyone seemed perfect. Everyone except him. As he slid into his seat, whispers spread. Did you hear? He flunked math again. Billionaire's son, but dumb as a brick. Bet daddy's money will buy him a passing grade. Ethan clenched his fists. He hated it. Hated the stares, the whispers, the smirks. The teacher, Mrs. Langley, dropped graded papers onto desks. When Ethan's landed, he didn't even have to flip it over. The red F screamed loud enough. Mrs. Langley's eyes lingered. Ethan, if you spent half as much time studying as you do, avoiding responsibility, you might surprise yourself. The class chuckled. Ethan sank lower in his chair. At lunch, Ethan sat alone under the bleachers, poking at his untouched food. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through comments on a recent tabloid article about him. Rutherford heir embarrasses family name. Maybe money count by brains. Future of the empire? More like future disaster. Each word cut deeper. He wanted to disappear. That's when a voice broke the silence. You gonna eat that, or just stare it to death? Ethan looked up. Standing there was Marcus, the school janitor. Tall, broad, with hands rough from years of work. His uniform was faded, but his eyes, sharp, steady, saw more than most people noticed. Ethan mumbled, not hungry. Marcus sat down on the step across from him, unwrapping his own sandwich. Funny thing about food. Doesn't work unless you put it in your mouth. Ethan rolled his eyes. What do you care? Marcus chewed thoughtfully before answering. Because I see a kid sitting alone, looking like the world's on his shoulders. And I've carried enough weight in my life to recognize it. Ethan laughed bitterly. What do you know about my world? Marcus leaned forward. More than you'd think. Ethan frowned. Why would a janitor care? Why would he even bother? Look, no offense, Ethan muttered. But you clean floors. You don't get what it's like to fail like me. Marcus chuckled. Kid, I've failed more times than you've even had tests. Difference is, I learned what failure was really for. Ethan raised an eyebrow. And what's that? Marcus' voice dropped, calm but powerful. To teach you the one thing no book can, resilience. You want to stop failing? Then stop running from it. Those words lodged in Ethan's mind like an anchor. But he shook his head. That's easier said than done. Marcus smiled. Maybe. But I'll show you. If you're willing. The next day after classes, Ethan found Marcus mopping the hallway. You really think you can help me? Ethan asked. Marcus leaned on the mop, studying him. I don't think. I know. But first, you've got to answer me one thing. Do you actually want to change? Or do you just want people to stop laughing at you? Ethan hesitated. No one had ever asked him that. Finally, he whispered, I want to prove I'm not worthless. Marcus nodded slowly. Good. Then meet me here tomorrow. Same time. Don't be late. The following afternoon, Marcus handed Ethan a broom. Ethan blinked. You want me to clean? Exactly, Marcus said. You want to learn my secret? Start here. Ethan scoffed. This is stupid. Marcus' tone sharpened. Stupid is doing the same thing over and over, and expecting a different result. Try something new, kid. Trust me. Reluctantly, Ethan swept the hallway. At first, he dragged the broom lazily. But Marcus corrected him. Details matter. Every corner, every edge. Do it right, or don't do it at all. By the time Ethan finished, sweat clung to his forehead. Marcus smiled. See? You stuck it out. Didn't quit halfway. Ethan frowned. What does this have to do with tests? Marcus leaned in. Everything. School tests measure facts. Life tests measure grit. Fail one, and you'll still survive. Fail the other, and you're finished. My secret? Pass the test of grit, and the rest will follow. For the first time, Ethan didn't feel completely hopeless. He felt challenged. Like maybe, just maybe, there was a way forward. But little did he know, this was only the beginning. Because the real secret Marcus had to teach, the one that would shock Ethan's father, his school, and even himself, hadn't been revealed yet. If you're hooked right now, and you want to see how Marcus' secret completely transforms Ethan's life, and even shakes the billionaire father's world, then don't miss the next. Subscribe, hit the bell, and stay with us. The story's only just getting started. The following afternoon, Ethan showed up at the hallway where Marcus usually worked. For the first time, he came early. Marcus looked up from polishing a brass doorknob. Well, didn't think you'd show. Ethan shrugged. I said I wanted to change. Marcus grinned. Good. Today's lesson, focus. He pulled out a deck of cards from his pocket. Ethan blinked. Cards. Marcus shuffled smoothly. Every test you fail isn't because you're stupid. It's because you lose focus the second it gets hard. We're going to fix that. He spread the cards face down. Find the ace of spades. But here's the catch. I'll mix them, and you'll only get one try. Ethan groaned. This is dumb. Marcus leaned closer. So is failing the same math test 3 times. Try. Marcus shuffled fast, hands a blur. Ethan tried to track the ace, but after a few flips, his eyes glazed over. He picked a card at random. Wrong. Marcus shook his head. You gave up halfway. You let your brain wander. That's why you fail tests. Not because you don't know, but because you check out. Ethan frowned. So what, I'm doomed? Marcus smiled faintly. Not if you train your focus. Again. For the next 20 minutes, Ethan kept guessing, kept failing. But then, he slowed his breathing, blocked out the noise of lockers slamming, students laughing. He locked in. Finally, he pulled the ace. Marcus nodded. See? You stayed with it. And for the first time, Ethan felt a spark of pride. Ethan had no idea why sweeping floors or chasing cards mattered. But somehow, Marcus' lessons felt different. They weren't about memorizing. They were about becoming stronger. And deep down, Ethan realized, something inside him was shifting. But he didn't know his father was watching. And suspicion was about to crash down on both of them. That evening, Ethan walked into the Rutherford mansion, still clutching the ace card Marcus had given him. He tucked it into his pocket, like a secret trophy. But at dinner, Richard noticed. What's that? Ethan froze. Nothing. Just a card. Richard's eyes narrowed. Where did you get it? Ethan hesitated. A friend. Richard's voice dropped like thunder. What kind of friend? You don't need distractions, Ethan. You need results. Ethan blurted out before thinking. He's helping me more than you ever have. The dining room went silent. The butlers froze mid-step. Richard's fork clattered. What did you say? Ethan swallowed. Marcus. The janitor at school. He's teaching me. Richard's face hardened. A janitor? His voice echoed off marble walls. My son, the heir to everything I've built, is taking advice from someone who scrubs toilets? Ethan pushed back from the table. At least he believes in me. And with that, he stormed upstairs, leaving Richard fuming. The next day, Ethan told Marcus what happened. He hates that I'm learning from you, Ethan admitted. He thinks I'm wasting my time. Marcus chuckled softly. Your father only sees the surface. That's his weakness. Ethan frowned. Why are you even doing this? Why do you care what happens to me? For the first time, Marcus' eyes darkened. Because I know what it's like to be written off. I know what it's like to have the world expect nothing from you. And I refuse to let you drown the way I almost did. Ethan leaned forward. Almost did? What do you mean? Marcus shook his head. That's a story for another day. For now, trust the process. Ethan couldn't stop wondering. Who was Marcus, really? Why did a janitor talk like someone who'd lived 100 lives? The secret of Marcus' past was about to unravel, but only after Ethan faced his toughest challenge yet. Marcus handed Ethan a thick packet. Your first mock test. But this time, you're not allowed to give up halfway. You finish it, no matter what. Ethan groaned at the pages of algebra and essays. I'll fail. Marcus' voice cut sharp. Then fail forward. Every wrong answer is just one step closer to the right one. Quitting? That's the only true failure. For hours, Ethan scribbled. At times he wanted to throw the pencil. At times he buried his face in his hands. But Marcus wouldn't let him quit. When Ethan finally handed it back, half the answers were wrong. But Marcus didn't frown. He smiled. Congratulations. This is the first test you've actually finished. Later that week, Richard called Ethan into his study. The billionaire's face was carved in stone. Ethan, I've tolerated your experiments. But enough is enough. Finals are in 2 weeks. If you fail again, you're out. Out of Crestwood. Out of this house. Out of my will. Ethan's throat went dry. You disown me? Richard's eyes burned. I don't raise failures. You'll either rise to your name, or you won't be part of it. Ethan staggered out, the weight of the world crashing down. The line had been drawn. Pass, and Ethan would finally earn respect. Fail, and he'd lose everything. And the only person standing between him and ruin was the janitor no one respected. The next afternoon, Marcus brought Ethan outside behind the school. What are we doing here? Ethan asked. Marcus dropped a heavy duffel bag at his feet, carrying weight. Inside were bricks. Dozens. Ethan's eyes widened. You're kidding. Nope, Marcus said. Life is heavy. Pressure is heavy. You're going to carry this until you stop saying, I can't. For the next hour, Ethan staggered under the weight, sweating, stumbling, cursing. Students passing by laughed. But Marcus' voice kept steady. Keep moving. Step by step. Don't drop it. Don't quit. Finally, Ethan collapsed, chest heaving. Marcus knelt beside him. You see? You went farther than you thought you could. That's the secret, Ethan. Your limit isn't real, it's only the wall your fear built. As Ethan caught his breath, he asked again. Why are you so hard on me? Marcus' gaze went distant. Because once someone believed I could be more than a failure. And they were right. But I threw it away. Lost everything. Ethan blinked. What happened? Marcus' jaw tightened. I was once on a path like yours. But instead of listening, I fought everyone who tried to help. By the time I realized my mistake, it was too late. Ethan whispered. So now you're helping me. Marcus looked at him with quiet intensity. No, I'm helping you help yourself. Because one day, I won't be here. And you'll need to carry the weight alone. Ethan didn't fully understand Marcus' words. But he felt something shift inside. For the first time in his life, he wanted to fight. Not just to avoid failure, but to win. But just as he was beginning to rise, a storm was brewing. Because Richard Rutherford had just hired a private investigator to dig into Marcus' past. And what they uncovered would shake the Rutherford family to its core. If you thought Ethan's journey was intense so far, wait until you see what happens when his father discovers who Marcus really is. The truth will explode everything. So stick with us, subscribe, and don't miss next. It's about to get wild. The final exams were just over a week away. Every hallway in Crestwood Academy buzzed with stress. Students lugging textbooks, cramming in corners, whispering about what questions might appear. But Ethan was different now. He wasn't the same boy who crumbled at the sight of a math equation. He was tired, yes, drained from Marcus' relentless lessons, but something inside him burned brighter. That morning, Marcus waited by the lockers with a mop in one hand and a folded piece of paper in the other. He handed it to Ethan wordlessly. What's this? Ethan asked. Your enemy, Marcus said. Ethan unfolded it. A sheet filled with calculus questions stared back at him. His stomach sank. You've got 20 minutes, Marcus said. You can panic, or you can fight. Ethan exhaled sharply. Then he sat down right there on the hallway floor, pencil trembling in his grip. Students passed by laughing at him. What's the janitor doing, giving you homework? One sneered. Ethan ignored them. For the first time in his life, he didn't care about the noise. The Ethan of 2 weeks ago would have stormed off, humiliated. But now he locked in. The pencil scratched against the paper like a soldier's blade on steel. And while they mocked, Ethan knew something they didn't. The The janitor's secret was working. Meanwhile, across town, Richard Rutherford sat in his glass-walled office, overlooking the skyline. His private investigator stood before him, a thin folder in hand. "You asked me to dig into Marcus Lee," the investigator said. "I found something." Richard's brow furrowed. "Well," the investigator hesitated. "He's not just a janitor. He used to be a professor. Mathematics. One of the brightest. Published papers, taught at universities." Richard sat forward. "And what happened?" The investigator slid a grainy photo across the desk. Marcus, younger, in a suit, standing at a lectern before a crowd. 10 years ago, scandal. Accused of cheating investors in a startup deal. Lost everything. Wife left. He disappeared. Re-emerged here, working as a janitor under a new name. Richard's jaw clenched. "And this is the man teaching my son?" The investigator nodded. "Yes, sir. But there's more. Some say the accusations were never proven. Some whisper he was framed." Richard's eyes narrowed. Framed or guilty. Either way, he stays away from Ethan. Do you understand me? The next day, Marcus led Ethan into the old gymnasium. "Today," Marcus said, "isn't about numbers. It's about fire. Can you stay calm when everything burns?" He handed Ethan another mock test, but this time, with a twist. The questions weren't just academic. They were riddles, puzzles, real-world scenarios. Ethan skimmed the first. "You have 10 workers, 8 hours, and a collapsing bridge. How do you save the maximum number of lives?" Ethan blinked. "What is this?" Marcus crossed his arms. "A test. Not just of knowledge, but of judgment." Ethan's hands shook. But then he remembered the bricks. The cards. The weight. And he steadied himself. Ethan didn't know it yet, but every strange exercise, from carrying bricks to solving riddles, was part of a single secret Marcus was preparing to reveal. And when it came, it would change not only Ethan's grades, but his entire life. That evening, Richard stormed into Crestwood Academy. He found Marcus sweeping near the library. "You," Richard spat. "Stay away from my son." Marcus didn't flinch. "Your son came to me. Not the other way around." Richard's voice was ice. "You're a fraud. I know about your past. You ruined lives. You think I'll let you ruin his?" For a moment, Marcus' eyes flickered with something, guilt, or maybe pain. "I ruined my own life," Marcus said softly. "Not his. I'm trying to save his." Richard stepped closer. "Save him? From what?" Marcus looked him dead in the eye. "From becoming you." The words hit like a thunderclap. Richard's face twisted with rage. But Marcus simply turned back to his broom. Days later, Ethan sat hunched over another mock test. Sweat beaded his forehead. But this time, he wasn't panicking. He breathed steadily, remembered Marcus' voice. "One step at a time. Don't quit." He finished the test. Not perfect, but better. Far better. Marcus scanned the answers, nodding slowly. "You're learning." Ethan grinned for the first time in weeks. I didn't give up." Marcus placed a hand on his shoulder. "That's worth more than a perfect score." But just as Ethan was finding his strength, Richard was setting a trap. He had pulled strings with the headmaster. If Marcus so much as guided Ethan during finals, both of them would be expelled. Marcus from his job, Ethan from Crestwood. The stage was set for disaster. One night, Ethan cornered Marcus in the janitor's closet. "Who are you, really?" Ethan demanded. "My father says you ruined lives. That you're lying to me. Tell me the truth." Marcus' hands froze on the mop. For a long moment, he said nothing. Finally, he sighed. "Yes, I was a professor. Yes, I was accused of fraud. But I didn't steal money. I was trying to protect my students from men like your father. Powerful men who gamble with lives." Ethan's eyes widened. "You mean my dad?" Marcus shook his head. "Not just him. Men like him. Men who believe failure makes you worthless." Ethan's throat tightened. "So why help me?" Marcus looked at him with quiet intensity. "Because if you fall, you'll become just another casualty of their world. And I refuse to let that happen." For the first time, Ethan understood. Marcus wasn't just teaching him math. He was preparing him for something bigger. A world where power crushed the weak. But what Ethan didn't know was that Richard wasn't finished digging. And what he would uncover next would shatter Ethan's trust completely. Richard's investigator slid another file across the desk. "This just came in," he said. Richard opened it. Inside were letters. Reports. Evidence that Marcus had once mentored a boy, brilliant, gifted, who ended up destroyed in the scandal. The boy had vanished. Rumors whispered he'd taken his own life. Richard's eyes lit with cold triumph. So Marcus already failed one student. Now he's trying again with Ethan. Not on my watch. He slammed the folder shut. Tomorrow, I end this. The next morning, Richard showed up at school during Marcus' shift. He pulled Ethan out of class, folder in hand. Read this, Richard barked, shoving the papers at him. Ethan skimmed the lines. His stomach twisted. Marcus, is this true? Marcus froze. The hallway fell silent. Finally, he whispered. Some of it. Yes. Ethan's chest tightened. Betrayal clawed at him. You lied to me. Marcus reached out. Ethan, I. But Ethan pulled back. You said you'd help me. You said you wouldn't let me drown. And now I find out you already drowned someone else. Richard smirked coldly. You see, son? This man is poison. Come home where you belong. Ethan stared between them, heart racing. His father on one side, Marcus on the other. And he didn't know who to trust. The choice lay before him. Trust the man who raised him, or the janitor who had given him hope. But before Ethan could answer, a voice rang out across the hall. Mr. Rutherford? It was the headmaster. We need to speak. Privately. Now. Richard's face darkened. Ethan's confusion deepened. And Marcus whispered something under his breath. So softly Ethan barely heard it. It's happening again. The cliffhanger hung heavy. What was happening again? And what secret was Marcus hiding that even Richard didn't know? If you thought the tension was high now, just wait. Marcus' darkest secret hasn't even been revealed. And Ethan's next choice will either save him or destroy him. Don't miss next. Subscribe now, because what comes next will leave you breathless. Ethan didn't sleep that night. Marcus' confession kept echoing in his mind. Some of it. Yes. The boy who once trusted Marcus more than anyone now felt torn apart. The next morning, Ethan skipped the janitor's closet where they usually met for lessons. He avoided Marcus in the halls. He even refused to look up when Marcus swept past his desk. For Marcus, the silence was worse than words. He whispered under his breath as he worked. Not again. Please, not again. Ethan could shut Marcus out. He could even believe his father's words. But with finals days away, he knew the truth. Without Marcus, he would fail. And if he failed, his father would never let him forget it. That evening, Richard cornered Ethan in his study. You've wasted enough time with that janitor, Richard said coldly. From now on, you'll study with a tutor I've hired. Cambridge educated. Efficient. No baggage. Ethan sat silently, fists clenched under the table. Richard smirked. You'll thank me when you pass. And when that man is gone. But Ethan's silence wasn't agreement. Inside, a storm was brewing. At midnight, Marcus sat alone in the janitor's closet. His mop leaned in the corner, untouched. On his lap rested an old, worn photograph. A young boy with bright eyes, smiling wide. Marcus whispered. I failed you, Jordan, but I won't fail him. A knock startled him. Ethan stood in the doorway, pale from exhaustion. I need help, Ethan said quietly. Marcus' chest tightened. I thought you didn't trust me anymore. I don't, Ethan admitted. But I don't trust him either. I'm stuck. Marcus leaned forward, eyes burning. Then let me tell you the truth. All of it. But you need to be ready, because it's not the story your father wants you to hear. Ethan swallowed hard. He didn't know if he wanted the truth. But something in Marcus' voice told him. Once he heard it, nothing would be the same again. Marcus spoke slowly, as if each word carried weight. 10 years ago, I had a student named Jordan. Brilliant boy. Like you. He trusted me. Believed in me. Ethan leaned in. But the system crushed him. His father, powerful, ruthless, forced him to chase money over meaning. Jordan resisted. He wanted to think differently. To fight back. Marcus' voice cracked. And I tried to protect him. I shielded him from the men who used him as a pawn. But I failed. He lost everything. And then he was gone. Ethan's throat tightened. Gone. Marcus nodded, eyes wet. He took his own life. The silence that followed was suffocating. Ethan whispered. And my father says you caused it. Marcus' jaw tightened. Your father was one of those men in the room when it happened. Ethan reeled. His father wasn't just trying to protect him from Marcus. He had been part of the tragedy that destroyed Marcus' brightest student. If that was true, who was the real villain here? The next morning, Ethan confronted Richard. Tell me about Marcus. About the boy named Jordan. Richard's face froze. That's none of your concern, Richard snapped. It is if you had something to do with it. Ethan shot back. Richard slammed his fist on the desk. Enough. Marcus is poison. He feeds you lies because he wants revenge. He's using you the same way he used that boy. Ethan's voice cracked. Then why won't you just tell me the truth? Richard leaned in, eyes cold. Because you're not ready for the truth. You're still weak. And if you fail your finals, you'll prove me right. Ethan stormed out, fury boiling in his veins. The academy was silent. Classrooms locked. Lights dim. But in the janitor's closet, a single lamp glowed. Ethan sat hunched over his books, Marcus pacing behind him. You've got this, Marcus said firmly. What if I don't? Ethan whispered. Marcus grabbed a piece of chalk and scribbled on the board. Failure is not equal to worthless. Remember this, Marcus said. You are not your grades. You are not your father's opinion. You are more. For the first time, Ethan felt something stronger than fear. He felt belief. The finals were tomorrow. Ethan was still unprepared by Crestwood's standards. But Marcus' secret training wasn't about perfect scores. It was about resilience. And tomorrow, Ethan would need all of it. Rows of students sat in silence. Pens scratched. Papers shuffled. Ethan's hands trembled as he opened the first question. His mind went blank. Panic surged. Then he closed his eyes. He remembered the bricks. The riddles. Marcus' voice. One step at a time. Don't quit. He wrote. Slowly at first. Then faster. By the end, sweat drenched his shirt. But he had finished. For the first time in his life, he had finished. After the exam, Richard waited for Ethan in the courtyard. You've made your choice, Richard said coldly. You defied me. So hear this. If you fail, you're not my son anymore. Ethan's chest tightened. And if you pass? Ethan asked. Richard smirked. Then you did it despite that janitor. And he'll still be gone. A week later, the results were posted. Students crowded the board, shouting and crying. Ethan's eyes scanned desperately for his name. When he found it, his heart stopped. He hadn't scored the top. Not even close. But he had passed. Against every odd, he had passed. Tears stung his eyes. For once, he wasn't a failure. But as he turned to celebrate with Marcus, the hallway erupted with gasps. The headmaster marched forward, flanked by Richard. Marcus Lee, the headmaster said. You're terminated. Effective immediately. Ethan's victory was ripped from him in an instant. He cried out, No, he's the reason I passed. But Richard's cold voice silenced the crowd. Say goodbye to your janitor, Ethan. You'll never see him again. Marcus looked at Ethan one last time, eyes burning with unspoken words. And then he whispered, It's not over. Find me. The guards led him away. Ethan stood frozen, heart racing. He had passed the test, but lost the only man who believed in him. And deep inside, he knew. The real fight was just beginning. You thought the exams were the climax. Wrong. The truth behind Marcus' past, Richard's power, and Ethan's next choice is still hidden. And when it explodes in next, it will change everything. Don't miss it. Subscribe right now, because the next part is the one that will leave you speechless. The janitor's closet was silent. The lamp still flickered, books still scattered, chalk dust still hanging in the air. But Marcus was gone. Ethan stood in the doorway, chest heaving, fighting tears. For weeks this room had been his sanctuary. Now it felt like a crime scene. He touched the chalkboard. 3 words remained, written in Marcus' messy scrawl. Don't give up. Ethan whispered. I won't. Marcus had been taken, but Ethan realized something crucial. The lessons weren't gone. They lived inside him. And now he had to use them. That evening, Richard hosted a party at the mansion. Crystal glasses clinked. Politicians, businessmen, and headmasters gathered to celebrate Ethan's success. Richard raised his glass. To my son, who proved he doesn't need the filth of this world to succeed. Laughter echoed. Cameras flashed. Ethan clenched his fists. He wanted to scream the truth. That Marcus had saved him. That his father was lying to every guest in this room. But Marcus' voice echoed in his mind. Wait. Choose your moment. Ethan realized that if he exposed his father now, no one would believe him. But if he stayed silent, Richard would win. He had to bide his time. Late that night, Ethan slipped into his room. On his desk, tucked beneath his textbooks, was an envelope. No one knew how it got there. He tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, written in Marcus' careful handwriting. Truth can't be buried forever. If you want answers, meet me where it all began. The old library, midnight, 3 days from now. Don't tell anyone. Ethan's heart pounded. Marcus was still out there. Still fighting. But if Marcus had risked slipping this letter into his room, that meant someone was helping him. And if Richard found out, they'd both be finished. 3 nights later, Ethan crept through the academy's grounds under moonlight. The old library loomed like a shadow. Inside, Marcus waited. His clothes were dirty, his face tired, but his eyes burned with fire. "You came," Marcus said softly. Ethan ran to him. "I thought I'd never see you again." Marcus placed a hand on his shoulder. "I told you. It's not over." Marcus led Ethan to a dusty archive. He pulled a box from the shelf. Inside were letters, transcripts, and photographs. "This," Marcus said, "is the truth your father doesn't want you to know." Ethan read. Reports of secret deals, bribes, academic cover-ups. At the center of it all was Richard, a young man, already ruthless. And among the files, a newspaper clipping. The headline screamed, "Promising student found dead. Investigation closed as suicide." "Jordan." Marcus' voice shook. "Your father crushed him. And when I tried to fight back, they silenced me. Made me a janitor to bury the past. But I stayed. Because I swore, if another boy needed me, I wouldn't fail again." Ethan's hands shook as he clutched the papers. "And now, I'm that boy." Marcus nodded. "And you have to choose, follow your father's path, or expose him." Ethan was no longer just a struggling student. He was now the key to destroying his father's empire, or letting it grow stronger. But before Ethan could answer, a voice echoed from the shadows. "Well, well," Richard said smoothly, stepping into the library. Guards surrounded them. "You really thought you could meet in secret, Marcus? Did you think I wouldn't know?" Ethan froze. "You followed me?" Richard smirked. "Son, I don't follow. I control. And now, you'll see Marcus for what he truly is. A parasite clinging to broken boys." He snapped his fingers. Guards seized Marcus. As they dragged him away, Marcus shouted, "Ethan, remember what you've learned. You're stronger than him. Stronger than all of this." Ethan lunged forward. "Let him go." Richard pulled him back. "If you side with him, you'll lose everything. Your future, your inheritance, your name." Ethan's voice shook. "Maybe I don't want your name." The line was drawn. Richard's power versus Marcus' truth. And Ethan stood between them, forced to choose. Word of the confrontation spread through the academy. Students whispered. Teachers stared. Some supported Richard. Others secretly admired Marcus. For the first time, Ethan realized the whole academy was watching him. If he stayed silent, Marcus would disappear forever. If he spoke out, he'd risk everything. Richard called for an emergency assembly. Students and staff gathered in the great hall. Richard stood at the podium, Ethan by his side. "Tonight," Richard announced, "we end the lies. Marcus Lee has poisoned this academy long enough. He will be removed permanently." The crowd murmured. Then Richard turned to Ethan. "Son, tell them. Tell them what you've learned. Tell them I was right." The room fell silent. All eyes on Ethan. Ethan's heart pounded. He saw Marcus in the corner, bruised but unbroken. Their eyes met. Ethan stepped forward. He opened his mouth and said, "The screen cuts black." The audience never hears Ethan's words. Only his voice echoes faintly. "Everything you think you know is a lie." Did Ethan betray his father, or expose him? Did Marcus finally get justice? Or was this another trap? The next chapter will shatter everything you thought you knew. Subscribe right now so you don't miss the truth when it drops.